day. I spend every day in the kitchen this week, and that's going to be videos that you see next week. But I wanted to share with you a lot that's been going on in my heart and in my mind, and I want to share with you just a little bit more about me and the thoughts that I'm thinking over this week. You know, priorities and to have boundaries. It seems like that's the word that we all hear. We hear about boundaries, and we hear about how we need to set ourselves for quiet time and for peace in our life. You know, I'm a channel that talks all about peace and talks about simplicity and living this simple life. But you know, it creeps up on us, even me, even though I desire so much to live a simple life. The thing I ever known was being a homemaker and a housewife, and being a mother and being a wife. These are the only things I've ever known in my life. I never knew what it was like to work away from home, and I never knew what it was like to live in the rat race of the world. And slowly, the rat race came to my home. I don't know right when it happened. It happened slowly, and it creeped up upon me. Before I knew it, I was getting engulfed in the rat race. Then, on Wednesday, I shared with all of you about the roller coaster ride and how I'm deciding to get off the ride and not go back on it anymore. I think it happens to all of us. I think that we all seem to get wrapped up in the rat race of life. It just happens. Then we have to reset our clocks and reset our life back again to where we were. It's not just me or you, it's everybody. Some people thrive the rat race of life. They thrive about getting up and just hit that floor running and don't stop until they fall asleep. Me, I never really thrived on that kind of life. After a while, it creeps up on me and I start getting anxiety, and I start getting headaches, and I start feeling anxious, and I start worrying and not being able to sleep. For me, the rat race of life never adjusted well. Having a YouTube channel, it's really hectic. It's a fun way to live, but once again, it becomes very hectic and stressful. You have to be there for people, and even though it's so rewarding, sometimes you have to set boundaries in your own life. And I had to do that. I had to take a step back and turn off the internet for just a little bit and refocus. What videos am I watching of other people's? Where am I spending my time when I'm not making videos? What am I doing? A lot of times people incorporate their whole families in their YouTube. And while I do that once in a while, I don't want it to be my life just in front of the camera. And so when I do things with my grandchildren and we go away every Thursday, I don't share that part of it because they want their grandma, not some YouTuber that has a camera that's in their face 24/7. And I realized all of these things, that YouTube has its place in my heart and in my life, but it isn't my world. It's a big part of my world, but it's not everything. And that I don't need to live for YouTube. YouTube needs to be a part of my life. It's like the saying, you eat to live, not live to eat. And while I love food, even though I love food, I don't want to live to eat. I want to eat to live. And while I love YouTube, I don't want to live for YouTube. I want YouTube to be in my life. That means boundaries. That means maybe setting aside some goals in your life to live. There's nothing wrong with having goals. There's nothing wrong with projecting yourself. Where would I be in 5 months and 6 months or a year from now? Where am I going to be in a month from now? There's nothing wrong with any of those things. It's great to have goals. But are you still living, even though those goals don't happen? Are you still living your life if the what ifs would happen? I started thinking in my life, what would it be like if I made YouTube, I would make more money in YouTube, and that I actually could have a home that worked well. I love the home that I live in, and I don't regret living here whatsoever. It's taught me more things in life than anything else has really taught me. But then you start thinking, what would it be like? What would it be like if I could make enough money that I could live a dream? And that would be to live in a tiny house somewhere out, away from people. And those dreams are great. And I always tell you, you can have your fantasy now, and you can. You can have your fantasy now and still dream about things to come. All of these things we can have. But if your fantasy takes over your real life, then you have a problem. And so my husband said, we were doing something that had to do with the brokenness of our home. And he said, I can't wait till I have another house someday. And I said to him, you know, even though we look ahead to maybe someday having a house that isn't broken, we realize that we need to live in the moment. And so many times I've seen people who their whole life, they're waiting for that moment to come when this would be answered or that would be answered in life. We wait for that moment to come. And then that moment never arrives. And they're laying there knowing that they're not going to live much longer. And they look back, all those years they wished upon something, and it never happened. That's not being negative or being a doomsday person. That's just saying reality. So why not choose to love what you are at, where you are. Love the body you're in, whether it's broken or not. Whether you have those extra pounds. Love what you have now, because who knows down the road what you'll have. And if you get that dream come true, for me, it would be that tiny house on a few acres, somewhere off to the distance. Then you can look back and say, I was happy then and I am happy now. Through it all, I have learned life's lessons. I was brought to the attention of a young woman one day who I was complaining about the way my weight is. I was saying about how overweight I am and how thin and nice she looks, until she said to me, how dare you complain about your weight? I'm this thin because I can't eat. I have eating disorder and issues in my life. I would do anything to live like you and be able to eat and not have these issues. That is how it is, my friends, in life. We look at someone else far away and say, wow, look at her. Wow, look at him. He's got the perfect life, the perfect wife, the perfect home. Well, look at her husband. He's the perfect man. He's the perfect person. He's got the most beautiful, perfect life. We don't know what their lives are when the lights go out and they're in their home and they're struggling with things in their life. Nobody's grass is greener on the other side. It may look that way. It may appear that way. But we need to work on the own grass that's growing in our own backyard before we start looking at someone else's. That is on my thoughts this week. That as I sit here, even though it's not my ideal place in the mindset of my fantasy world, I have made this a fantasy because I created it how I want it to be for the things that I have. The talents, the skills, the money that I have, I created my own fantasy. If I had other money, other skills, other talents, my fantasy would be something different. But unless I win the lottery or something happens real quick, my fantasy will have to remain here. And I will continue to share my world with you. My home with you, my life with you, and my struggles